and welcome. Welcome to the Santa Clara County Office of Education, leveraging industry and post-secondary partnerships to build career pathways for alternative education students. My name is Joelle Hansen. I am the Career Technical Education Coordinator for the County Office, and my co-presenter is...
Hi, I'm Dana Richards, and I'm the Manager of Work-Based Learning for the Santa Clara County Office of Education. It's great to get to share with you today.
So when we think of alternative education, what kinds of traditional settings come to mind? Is it restrictive or flexible? What does the classroom look like? And is it confined to four walls? What does student learning look like? Is it inclusive, culturally responsive, innovative? What does it look and sound like when students are actively engaged? Or do you envision something a little bit different, like in these pictures? Flexible settings, utilizing outdoor space. For instance, the culinary arts program in our alternative education school, which utilizes outdoor space during the remodel of their permanent training facility. We want to ask this question: how can we humanize and raise expectations with our students in alternative educational settings by looking at setting, partners, barriers, challenges, opportunities, resources, advocacy, and loyalty, and cultural responsiveness? This theme or question spans across many alternative education settings and learning communities. The collaboration between the Santa Clara County Office of Education CTE team and alternative education team brings to light multiple challenges and opportunities that we believe provides lessons applicable across many educational settings. We're going to start by looking at the career education pathways that we started at Blue Ridge High School, known as James Ranch Court-Appointed Schools for Incarcerated Youth. We will be illustrating our inclusive efforts to build CTE pathways for alternative education students at Blue Ridge. To give you a little background, this is a court-appointed school in the rural part of Morgan Hill. The students are court-appointed leaving juvenile hall and coming, if it's within their court-appointed setting, to Blue Ridge to serve the rest of their term, which ranges between 3 to 6 months. Currently, there are 20 students, and they range from the age of 15 to 18 years old. Currently, they are all male, but this varies throughout the year. The length of stay, as I said, is fluid. It's dependent upon when the student arrives, and again, that length of stay can range from 3 to 9 months over a year, depending on their court placement order. Their post-secondary support, they have academic counselors who work with students and community college options during graduation and release from Blue Ridge. The alternative academic counselors work with probation, aftercare, and districts to transition the students back to school once they leave Blue Ridge. Also, if a student has less than 25 to 30 credits needed to graduate, the student can be placed in our alternate education independent studies program to earn their high school diploma.
So we want to share with you our problem statement related to setting. Throughout this presentation, we invite you to join us as thought partners and to ask yourselves the same questions that are guiding our work and our inquiry. Our problem statement related to setting is: how can we maintain safety and security, but increase student ownership of the site and student access and mobility throughout the day? We invite you to take a minute and think about what things come to your mind when you apply this question to your sites. Our theory of practice as it relates to setting is that environment is a super important part of the therapeutic process. Shifting from restriction and anxiety to mindfulness and openness can decrease stress, and it can reduce the number of incidents on campus while it increases trust and student agency. Again, we ask you to join us in thinking about what opportunities does your school setting provide? What are some ways you can increase the benefits of the various environments at your school site? As we implemented our theory of practice, we want to share with you some examples from our Blue Ridge site, our solutions to the setting problem. We mapped out zones that are large enough, pardon me, so that students feel like they're in an unrestricted area, even while probation counselors are able to keep good track of where students are at all times. We've gone out of our way to create positive associations with as many parts of the site as possible so that students feel connected, feel belonging, and grow even a stewardship ethic related to the environment. And really importantly, we allow students to make authentic and lasting improvements to the site. Students have been working on projects, creative projects, practical projects, and they can see their mark being left on the site. And that also increases their sense of belonging and grows their stewardship ethic and pride. Finally, we are developing a horticulture program based on extensive research that supports how important horticultural therapy can be for incarcerated youth and adults, connecting students to growing living things, connecting students to their own ability to nurture, heal, and steward is a very important part of culture building and very important part of the healing process at our alternative education sites. This map illustrates the solution number one related to creating larger zones where students can move about during training, during exercises. This is just an example of how we mapped out at the Blue Ridge site at the James Ranch in Morgan Hill. The more students have positive associations with all the places at the site, the more they feel connected, safe, and proud. And this includes work, it includes team building, and it includes recreation. We also look at students making authentic improvements to the site. This is an example of a significant part of the hardscape that was developed at the Blue Ridge site, where students created a professional level walkway. They also took an unused, dilapidated part of campus and are turning it into a fabrication facility, an outdoor fab lab. And finally, we're just now launching a horticulture program that we're really excited that will span 2 different sites. And if you don't already know about the benefits of horticultural therapy, we encourage you to look into that. We have a resource link at the end of the slideshow that we'll make available to you as well.
So another statement for problem statement is partnership. How can we engage partners to widen opportunities for students, increase exposure to adult role models, and stretch limited staffing, and technical resources. One of the things I want to share about Blue Ridge is that there's a history to what we finally have created now 3 or 4 years down the road. In the beginning, there was sort of, and you probably can relate to this, that there were some remnants of older career technical education pathways. And when I mean remnants, it's literally remnants. There were equipment, pieces of equipment, parts of construction projects that had happened. There were opportunities that were not completed with some of those projects. There was no teacher at the time. And so I came in, asked by the director to see if we could start redeveloping the construction program about 4 years ago. And in doing so, I knew that we needed to start branching out and seeing if we could partner with other agencies and other organizations. Because as you probably know, there's so many things that happen on a school site with so many moving pieces that any one person, whether you're a teacher, a counselor, an administrator, you're taxed, and there's a limit of bandwidth. And that's why I felt that it was important to start bridging these partnerships so that these partners could take some of the lift off of the current site and district personnel and take on some of the challenges. So as I said, one of the challenges was that we had these remnants of previous pathways that didn't really exist. And so one of the things that we did is we reached out to a current high school in Santa Clara County to look at their construction program, because we knew if we went and looked at it, we could make those bridges and partnerships with the instructor to give us some curricular ideas. And they happened to have an open house, which had a lot of other of their partners there willing to listen to what our needs were at Blue Ridge. So we were able to increase student access to highly qualified training and instruction because we partnered with companies like Paxton and Patterson, where we were able to buy some modules. We were able to reach out to the community colleges who were there, and some of the other partners, which LIUNA, one of them, is a local construction labor trade union who was more than willing to come in and help us kind of solve the problem of having remnants of previous pathways. The other thing is that we partnered with Mission College for a dual enrollment in the culinary pathway that we built out. And one of the great things about community colleges is not only do they build out affordable career pathways, so we call them K-14 pathways, but they also gave us opportunities to do some field trips to see their culinary program in operation with students who were very similar in age and background. And at the same time, in that one field trip that we went out there with our students. It was a special field trip that the probation bused the students with us out to Mission College. And the students were there on campus then, realizing that they too could continue their educational career in a community college, expanding their expectation and perceptions of themselves. So we now have an articulated agreement with Mission College for dual credit for culinary. So that was exciting. The other thing is that there can be a cost savings to full-time teachers. In other words, we can expand the opportunities beyond construction to facilities and maintenance and horticulture by doing some push-in programs where you're hiring at a lower cost industry certified people as contractors, which Dana will tell more about later on. And then by increasing these different kinds of career opportunities through culinary, construction, maintenance facilities, and also horticulture, students then have choice of what they want to do, what they're interested in, and gives them multiple examples of that. And then lastly, because we're not just using site personnel, students are getting a greater diversification of adult role models who are either in industry or in post-secondary, so that they can see a range of authenticity and expertise, which is pretty exciting. The other challenge that we had, and the other thing that's great about push-in models, is that the construction teacher moved out of the country midway through last spring. And so this push-in model provided us continued education and instruction, even though the teacher had left in the middle of the semester. So these are all benefits of this type of model. And then, of course, we have the college and career on-ramps through this model by having those partnerships with our community colleges. So as I said, one of the push-in models that we did was a contract with LIUNA. It's a local construction labor trade union where students participate in a 240-hour licensed pre-apprenticeship training on site in Blue Ridge. And Dana showed some of those pictures of some of the projects that the students were doing. So not only are they getting the benefit of a 240-hour pre-apprenticeship, which when we mapped out the content to academic and CTE model standards, students will get a total of 20 units, 5 for math, geometry, 2.5 for English, the rest for electives, but they also get industry certifications that are industry recognized. And when they're done with the pre-apprenticeship and they're 18 years old and have a license and they leave Blue Ridge, they can then enter the apprenticeship program in Hayward, where they can earn, they get free room and board Sunday through Friday, and they can earn a pretty decent hourly wage in the apprenticeship program as they move through. So this has been a really wonderful way of students being career ready when they leave Blue Ridge.
Another partnership asset is that we've done a push-in program with the facilities maintenance training through a company called CES Advisors. They do high-end facilities management services, and they do site assessments for major commercial entities. And we were fortunate to have them come and work with our students. And the couple of pieces of this particular program that really stand out. One, they had assembled a group of industry partners that we call fair chance employers who are willing, if students successfully complete the training, to take them on as entry-level employees. Facilities maintenance can provide a family-level living wage income in the Bay Area, but it can also be a stepping stone to much higher income and many more opportunities, including facilities management. This program also introduced students to industry standard tools and problem-solving skills. So we were very excited to have a facilities maintenance training opportunity using a push-in model. This was at the Blue Ridge site. Joelle mentioned already that we have dual credit through the culinary program with Mission College. You can see in the background on this slide, there's a picture of our students proudly displaying a crepe dish, a well-ornamented crepe dish that they created at the Blue Ridge site. And then I'm excited to share with you this Foothill College partnership that's related to horticulture. The idea here is that we can achieve the number of hours necessary for meaningful dual credit with our students and for certifications using a combination of techniques. So we will have in-person instruction from highly certified, highly qualified Foothill College instructors. We'll also have asynchronous lessons that students can tackle at any time. So during their homework time or other hours when it's not practical for a Foothill College instructor to be on site, students can be engaging with the material, and that can be supervised by one of the teaching staff on site. The other piece is that there'll be field trips. Joelle mentioned this, field trips where we can take students to the Foothill College site where they have a much more developed facility and training program. And this allows us to offer students horticulture without having to have a full-time FTE dedicated to horticulture. It allows us to make sure that the caliber of the education is top-notch because we're using a highly qualified community college instructor as the source of the instruction and the quality control. We're also tapping on-site resources to guide students, to coach them, and to work with them on the asynchronous parts of the program. This particular program I mentioned before, horticultural therapy, is really valuable for incarcerated youth, but it also allows us to work toward a farm to fork cycle, combining with our culinary arts program.
So what are some partnerships you can think help your CTE program? We talked a little bit about some of our partners, our community college partners, our industry partners. And I did just want to say that part of the partnership also is in the grant writing partnerships that we have with some of our districts in Santa Clara County to be able to facilitate some of the contracts that we've done with LIUNA, with the facilities maintenance push-in program, with building materials and other things that may be required for career technical education pathways. And so when thinking about your alternative education schools, your alternative education students, think about what types of partnerships you can leverage to help either in the funding or the planning or the support or all.
Thank you, Joelle. So now we want to talk a little bit about how important social and emotional learning is in alt ed settings, and of course we know in all settings. So our problem statement that I'm sure many of you are already engaging with is, how do we build trust? How do we build engagement and high expectations to promote belonging, for students to be willing to take risks and innovate, to create student agency, to advance results and achievement, and overall to foster in our students and in our learning communities a growth mindset. Our SEL theory of practice is we believe that a balance of student support tools, of adult commitment to growth through capacity building, and technical competencies will lead to increased student agency, an increase in healthy choices, and ultimately self-reliance and an ability to join the world of work and have a family level living wage. Our SEL solutions that we're working to put in place in our alt ed communities include trauma-informed practices. It includes an asset and strengths orientation. As you know, when we talk about trauma-informed practice, we're talking about depersonalizing, not escalating power struggles, really understanding the student perspective on why they behave the way they behave, why they think the way they think, and what from their life story, what makes sense to them that may take some time to get to understand. When we talk about assets and strengths, we want to recognize that our students all have heroic journeys. In some ways, especially alternative education students have heroic journeys. And sadly and ironically, often they don't recognize their own assets and strengths. So it's a really important part of the culture building in our alt-ed settings. We want to validate multiple learning modalities. I like the phrase hidden genius. Oftentimes, when only one or two learning modalities are validated in conventional learning settings, students that don't fit that mold feel inadequate and inferior and act out from those places of insecurity and inferiority. We want to build cultures at alt-ed sites where multiple learning modalities are valued and where honestly it's ritualized and it's structural, the degree to which different learning styles and different strengths are mined and capitalized on. In addition to the affective domain of social and emotional learning, we recognize that competencies are key to student positive core imagery and to student confidence and success. We expose students to industry standard tools and techniques in order to support this. And we engage students in higher level cognitive and collaborative work, problem solving, critical thinking, innovation, working in a team, design thinking. Those are all elements that we want to build into the alternative education learning culture and pathways. Because a lot of our focus in our alt-ed sites has to do with career readiness and has to do with training, safety is a big part of the curriculum. And safety training provides us an excellent opportunity to develop teams, to build communication skills. Oftentimes it's not an exaggeration, especially in construction, to say that these are life and death moments. These are high stakes moments. And so the safety training in the sense of that we are a we and not just an I, that's a really important part of safety training, and it's transferable, and the communication skills that come out of that process are transferable. In terms of embodied social and emotional learning or emotional intelligence, I'm reminded of an anecdote during the training at the Blue Ridge site where students were learning how to do sweat welding in copper, which is part of facilities maintenance. It's also a sub-trade that can be a very lucrative sub-trade, plumbing, of course. I observed the push-in instructor working with students on sweat welding, and what I noticed was his body language, his tone, and his humility all created trust, a sense of safety, and it led to students inviting him into their personal space, into their workspace. But every time he entered their personal space or workspace, he did so with permission and asking permission, and with a softness in his tone and with a embracing and affirming style. We want to remember that when we create power struggles, when we escalate conflict, it's generally students who lose. We all know this. The adults suffer, the whole learning culture suffers, but students lose the most. So the social and emotional learning piece is extremely important because you can't get to the results without it. We also say that competency-based self-confidence is really important, especially in the world of work. What you can do is what matters in the emerging economy. How you got there matters less and less. What you look like on paper matters less and less in the emerging economy, but what you can do does matter. And so we feel it's a matter of ethics to make sure that students are exposed to state-of-the-art tools and perspectives and thinking skills. This is an example at the Blue Ridge site of students learning to use sophisticated thermal imaging software as part of understanding buildings and energy dynamics and sustainable technology and energy conservation, and even concepts like climate change and carbon footprint as it relates to facilities are becoming really important concepts. We also wanted to share with you the value of cultural responsiveness. This is a part of our asset orientation and our strengths-based approach. We want to share this question with you. How can we increase age, proximity, ethnic, gender, and racial identity factors in staffing and push-in choices? Our culturally responsive theory of practice: successful adults who students can more easily identify with increase empathy, trust, and engagement. Now, this can be achieved in many different ways. It's not only what a person looks like or how old they are. It's also about their life story, their journey, what they have in common with our students. The culturally responsive solutions we've been able to put in place at our alt-ed sites include the fact that staff and push-in experts share identity elements with our students. That we're working toward mining cultural and other forms of experiential wealth. We're using a strength-based approach to take advantage of the strengths that students already possess. Here's a couple photos that show the adult staff in our LIUNA and our facilities maintenance training that represents what we're talking about. Joelle, would you like to talk about the resources, or would you like me to comment on these?
No, you can talk. These are just some of the things that you can research if you want to know more about the ideas and theories of practice that Dana and I, mostly Dana, discussed in our presentation.
Great, perfect.
So we wanted to end with a parting thought on all of this, because this is a lot of information to kind of absorb in about the 30+ minutes that we shared. Talent is well distributed,
whereas access and opportunity, not so much.
We want to thank you for your time
and your attention.
Please feel free to reach out to the Santa Clara County Office of Education CTE team if you have any further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.